The Eight Immortals Travel East, Chapter 17.
We are looking through a stack of really fascinating sources, Chapter 17 of a classic Chinese literary text.
Right, it's called Journey to the East, or Dongyuji.
Dongyuji, yeah. And to trace this one man's wild, pivotal transformation. We're following a guy who goes from being a completely defeated, disgraced military general to a literal, legendary Taoist immortal.
It's quite the career pivot.
Just a slight shift, yeah. We're going to talk about destiny, the
Yeah.
sheer psychological weight of letting go of your worldly desires, and ultimately how to slay the local, literal, or maybe metaphorical tiger in your own life.
Whoa.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's set the scene with our protagonist, Zhongli just suffered this catastrophic military defeat fighting against the Northern Fan.
And catastrophic almost feels like an understatement here, honestly. I mean, he didn't just lose a skirmish. His forces were completely wiped out, and he disappeared.
Right.
So his entire family just assumes he died on the battlefield. The text vividly describes them weeping, wearing these coarse, white, traditional mourning clothes of the era.
Yeah, they're just completely overwhelmed by the grief of losing their patriarch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then right in the middle of this devastation, the door opens, and in walks Zhongli.
Alive.
Alive. And the mourning in the house just immediately flips to this boundless, chaotic joy.
Which, I mean, you can imagine the sheer confusion of his family in that moment. They're demanding to know what happened, like how did he survive when everyone else perished?
Right. How are you standing here right now?
Exactly. And his explanation is the spark that ignites this entire transformation. Because he doesn't just tell them, oh, I ran away and hid in a cave.
No, it's way more elaborate than that.
Right. He describes fleeing alone, getting completely and utterly lost in this remote, uncharted mountain valley. And then he says he was guided by a mysterious foreign monk.
Which is already a pretty wild story to drop on your grieving family. Like, hey guys, I met a magical monk. But then it escalates even further.
Oh, it really does.
He claims this monk led him to a Taoist immortal living in the mountains. And this immortal taught him secret mystical arts. Specifically, he says he learned the methods of the Green Dragon Sword.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting to me here is how his family reacts to this explanation. Because if I told my family that, they'd call a doctor.
They'd think the trauma of war had driven you insane.
Exactly. But they don't do that. Instead, this bizarre story unlocks a buried memory for them. They suddenly recall these strange omens that happened on the exact day Zhongli was born.
What's fascinating here is that the family remembers that at his birth there was this strange blinding light, and it shot up several zeng, which that translates to tens of feet into the air.
Tens of feet, wow.
Yeah, a massive pillar of light. And accompanying that light were mysterious words spoken from nowhere. It was this prophecy that stated let me quote this, his body would roam the Purple Palace, and his name would be written in the Jade Register.
Okay, if you're listening to this, I want you to think about this. Have you ever, bombed a major presentation or totally failed at a project, and then you just told yourself, well, it's fine. It's just because I'm meant for bigger things anyway?
Right, the ultimate rationalization.
Yes, because that's what this feels like to me. It's like the ultimate superhero origin story.
Yeah.
Like when a superhero's parents realize, oh, so that's why our kid could lift a tractor at age 5. It all makes sense now.
It really does read that way.
But I need to ask you directly, because you know the history here. Is this prophecy actually validating his military failure? Or is this just a traumatized, terrified family desperately trying to find a mystical silver lining in what is, objectively, a massive military disaster?
Well, it is definitely tempting to view it purely as a coping mechanism, right? But
Yeah.
to really understand what is happening conceptually, we have to look at the specific terminology the text uses.
Okay.
The Jade Register and the Purple Palace. In Taoist cosmology, these are highly specific, deeply significant concepts. The Purple Palace is the actual celestial realm of the immortals.
Okay.
And the Jade Register is the literal bureaucratic roster of heavenly beings. So by bringing this up now, the family isn't just trying to make him feel better. They are instantly elevating Zhongli from a mortal, earthly failure to a cosmic VIP.
So they're entirely reframing the disaster. It's not that he was a bad general. It's that he was, never supposed to be a general in the first place.
Exactly. That is the core Taoist reframing. It presents his earthly defeat not as this shameful loss, but as a necessary, predestined detour.
Right.
The family concludes that because of his cosmic destiny, he was simply never meant to die by ordinary swords or halberds on a battlefield. His survival wasn't a stroke of dumb luck or cowardice.
It was the universe protecting its investment.
Precisely. It was the universe actively stepping in. And so, fully believing this, they throw a massive, joyous, celebratory feast to welcome him home.
Which is great. I love a feast. But escaping a physical execution on the battlefield is really only half the battle here. Because the true test is whether Zhongli can escape the political and societal mindset that has defined his entire life up to this point.
Right. The real world is still out there.
Exactly. And we see that struggle almost immediately, because the hangover from that joyous feast comes pretty quickly. Reality sets in after a few days.
Yeah, it always does.
Zhongli realizes that the Han Dynasty court back in the capital, they are not going to care about the Purple Palace or the Jade Register.
Oh, not at all. They're going to see a commanding officer who lost an entire army and deserted his post.
So what were the actual stakes for him there?
They were absolute. The Han Dynasty bureaucracy was remarkably rigid. The punishment for military failure and desertion was execution.
Just straight to execution.
Yes. And not just for him, actually. Under the legal codes of the time, his actions could result in the extermination of his extended family as well.
Wait, really? The whole family?
The whole family, the hierarchical structure of the court, leaves absolutely zero room for mystical excuses about mysterious monks in the mountains.
Man, that is intense. And this brings us to a major pivot point in the story. Zhongli is armed with these new, powerful Taoist sword arts he learned. He definitely has the capability to fight back or, I don't know, become a rebel leader or try to flee the continent.
He has options now,
Right.
physically speaking.
But instead, he makes a completely different choice. He decides to just quit.
Yeah.
He completely abandons the societal rat race. He decides to leave his worldly life behind entirely and seek out spiritual cultivation.
It is an act of radical detachment. He recognizes that the very system that has defined his identity, the military, the empire, the pursuit of rank and honor, is actually a trap.
Right.
To save himself, he realizes he has to stop playing the game entirely.
And what's really fascinating here is that his realization is contagious. Because this is where we enter his brother, Zhongli Jin.
Right. Yeah.
The text notes that Jin is a Langzong official serving the Han Dynasty. So he's, a mid-level bureaucrat?
Yeah, exactly. He's got a very comfortable, respectable, and most importantly, very safe government job.
Right. But the text tells us he has always naturally admired the Tao. And when Jin hears his brother's stories of the mountains and the monks and the immortal, he is so thrilled he literally cannot sleep.
The contrast here is crucial, I think. Zhongli Quan is running away from a literal death sentence.
Yeah, he has to run.
But Zhongli Jin is running away from absolute comfort and security.
Right. Jin doesn't even hesitate. He immediately quits his cushy government job to join his disgraced fugitive brother on a spiritual quest.
It's a massive leap of faith.
Earlier, I was thinking about this, kind of like a modern professional at the peak of their career, suddenly walking away from a really lucrative corporate gig to go live off-grid in a yurt or something. But reading the context of the Han Dynasty, that comparison feels way too small, right?
A corporate gig is a good starting point to understand it, but yeah, we really have to add immense gravity to it. If we connect this to the bigger picture in the Han Dynasty, Confucianism is the guiding ideology.
Okay.
Filial piety, which means your duty to your family, your ancestors, and your emperor, is the absolute highest moral law.
So you can't just quit.
No. By abandoning his post to wander the mountains, Jin isn't just quitting a job. He is legally and morally disowning his societal obligations. He is breaking the highest moral laws of his world.
Wow. So the societal weight they are shedding here is just immense.
It really highlights a profound tension in Chinese philosophy. You have the strict, demanding obligations of Confucian statecraft on one hand, versus the liberating, highly individualistic pursuit of the Tao on the other.
Well, and shedding their societal roles mentally is one thing, but they also do it physically, which leads to such a great cinematic moment in the text.
I love this scene.
Right. They say goodbye to their family. They put on these simple Taoist robes. They grab these traditional fly whisks, and they tie their hair up into two horn-like knots.
It's a complete visual reset.
Yeah, they completely strip away their visual identities as a general and a bureaucrat, and then they just set off toward the three peaks of Mount Kwa.
That physical transformation, it signals to themselves and really to anyone they meet that their past status was an illusion.
Right.
Worldly success, titles, wealth in the eyes of the Tao, these are just heavy artificial burdens that have to be discarded if you want to achieve true enlightenment.
So they are on the road to Mount Hua, fully embodying their new Taoist personas. And as they are walking past a small stream, they spot a white heron bathing in the water.
A very serene moment.
Very serene. And this seemingly mundane moment leads to a pretty profound philosophical lesson. Zhongli uses the animals in the stream to teach his brother. He points out that a duck's head is naturally short, while a heron's neck is naturally long.
This is a classic philosophical trope, actually. It's heavily inspired by earlier foundational thinkers like Zhuangzi.
Okay, so it's a known concept.
Yes. And Zhongli poses a rhetorical question to his brother. He asks, could you possibly cut the heron's neck to add length to the duck's?
Which sounds incredibly gruesome, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
And the answer is clearly no. You can't do that.
Right, and the gruesome nature of the image is intentional. Kwan's conclusion is that the universe is full of things that cannot and really should not be artificially lengthened or shortened.
Because nature just has its own way.
Exactly. Nature has an inherent perfect design. He tells his brother that if people could just see through this simple mechanism, the great Tao would be right in front of them, and the universe would be in the palms of their hands.
So, to use a modern analogy, it's like trying to force a purely creative, big-picture thinker into this obsessive spreadsheet-tracking middle management role.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You're stretching the duck's neck.
Right.
The person is totally miserable, the spreadsheets are a mess, and everyone ends up suffering because you're fighting their fundamental nature.
That is a perfect translation of the concept. Humanity's core problem, according to Kwan, is our inability to sever our worldly desires. And that inability causes us to constantly try and force the duck to have a long neck.
Okay, wait. I need to pause you there because the logic seems completely broken to me if we apply it to modern society.
How so?
Isn't human progress entirely about trying to lengthen the duck's neck? I mean, we build dams to change the flow of rivers, we invent medicines to extend human life, we engineer crops to grow larger so we can feed more people.
Right.
Aren't we always trying to alter nature for our benefit? If we just accept everything exactly as it is, aren't we just giving up?
That friction you're feeling right there is exactly why this text remains so provocative today. But the mechanism of Taoist philosophy here isn't about giving up. It's about the source of the action.
The source, what do you mean?
It is about ego and projection. When we want the duck to have a long neck, we want it because we think it would look better or be more useful to us. We project our own ego-driven desires onto the universe.
Ah, okay. If you're listening to this right now and thinking, well, I just spent 3 hours at the gym yesterday trying to fundamentally alter my natural body shape, you are experiencing the exact modern friction this text is warning about.
Yes. And that projection is where the suffering begins. Taoism argues that when you force outcomes against the fundamental nature of reality, you create deep imbalances.
Because the duck doesn't actually want a long neck.
Exactly. By accepting the inherent mechanism of the universe, you align yourself with the natural flow of reality, rather than constantly exhausting yourself fighting against it.
But, philosophy is incredibly easy when you're just looking at birds in a stream.
Well, of course.
The real question is, what does this all mean when reality comes crashing back in? Because this quiet, serene, philosophical chat about ducks and herons is suddenly and violently interrupted by loud shouts echoing through the mountains.
Yeah, the real world shows up.
A terrifying wild tiger is on the loose.
And the text gives us these incredible visceral details about this beast. It describes it as having a fleshy forehead and golden eyes. It is uncommonly ferocious.
This is not a metaphor.
No, this is a very real physical threat.
It's a massive cinematic shift. Like,
Yeah.
1 minute we are in a gentle nature documentary, and the next it's a monster movie. And the stakes are incredibly high and deeply tragic.
To be tragic, yeah.
The text explains exactly why the village is hunting this tiger right now. It recently ate a young boy, the son of a local widow. He was just over 10 years old, out in an orchard with a servant.
It grounds the high-minded mythology in very real, devastating human suffering. And it's fascinating how the text details the bureaucratic response to this tragedy, too. The devastated widow doesn't just mourn in private. She actually sues at the county level.
She basically takes the tiger to court, which feels so uniquely human.
It really does. It shows how the state apparatus attempts to manage even the chaotic forces of nature. The widow's lawsuit prompts the local magistrate to officially order hunters and local residents to mobilize and capture the beast.
Right.
The Confucian state is trying to impose order on the wild.
But the state apparatus is failing miserably here. The villagers surround the mountain with spears, short weapons, and they're banging gongs to scare it. But the tiger just roars, charges down the ridge, and actually injures several more people.
It's total chaos.
Finally, it backs itself into a corner on the southern mountain, and even the bravest, most capable villagers are totally paralyzed. They're just standing there, terrified, completely helpless against this monster.
Which brings us to the ultimate test of the brothers' newfound philosophy. This raises an important question. We have the chaotic violence of nature colliding with the rigid failure of the state. And standing right in the middle are our two newly minted Taoist wanderers.
Right, so what does this all mean? How does a detached immortal, who just 5 minutes ago was lecturing his brother about accepting nature exactly as it is, respond to the immediate, visceral terror and suffering of the common people?
Yeah, it's a huge dilemma.
Do you just stand by and say, well, the tiger's nature is to eat people, we can't shorten its teeth, just like we can't shorten the heron's neck?
The text forces the issue beautifully here. The desperate villagers actually make the decision for him. They notice Zhongli Quan.
Because he stands out.
Yes. The text points out that he has an imposing physical build and an uncommon striking appearance. He clearly doesn't look like an ordinary peasant.
Right.
So the villagers run up to him and literally beg this strange Taoist to save them and eliminate this harm from their community.
And before Quan even answers, his brother Jan prompts him. He says essentially, the evil beast is causing such massive harm. You said you obtained the green dragon sword method from the immortals? Why not try it?
And Quan's response is just wonderfully understated. He doesn't give a speech. He just says, yes. Just a simple, classical expression of agreement. He grabs his sword, shouts loudly, and literally throws his sword toward the mountain corner.
It's a spectacular display of magical Taoist martial arts. The tiger screams, bleeds profusely, and falls dead down the mountain.
A one-hit kill.
Yeah, a one-hit kill with a magical flying sword. The villagers are absolutely astounded. They rush over, thanking him profusely, begging to know his name so they can honor him. They probably want to build a shrine or record his deeds in the local histories.
And his reaction to their praise is really the climax of his transformation.
Because Zhongli just smiles.
Yeah.
He refuses to answer them. He simply sheathes his sword, and he and his brother turn around and walk away, casually chatting with each other like absolutely nothing happened.
It's incredible.
But hold on, I have to challenge this again, because the logic seems completely broken to me. Are you kidding me?
What's the problem?
We just spent 15 minutes establishing that we shouldn't artificially alter the natural order. We shouldn't try to change the length of the heron's neck. But then he immediately uses a magical flying sword to kill a wild animal, doing exactly what wild animals do. How does that not artificially altering the natural order?
That is the most brilliant tension in the text. And to untangle it beautifully, we have to look at the psychological mechanism of wu wei.
Wu wei.
Yes, it translates to effortless action or action without intent. Acting in accordance with the Tao doesn't mean ignoring suffering or adopting a posture of total apathy.
So intervention is actually okay.
Intervention is necessary when the natural balance has been severely ruptured.
Ah, I see.
The tiger crossing into the village, killing a child, injuring the locals, that is an extreme imbalance. But the key difference between human meddling like trying to stretch a duck's neck and what Zhongli does here comes back to ego. Yes. To understand Wu Wei, think of the flow state in modern psychology. When an elite jazz musician is improvising or a world-class athlete makes a split-second play, they aren't consciously thinking about it. They aren't worrying about how they look to the audience.
Right, they're just in the zone.
Exactly. They act purely on instinct, fully aligned with the moment, without their ego getting in the way.
Oh, wow. So when we try to stretch the duck's neck, we are acting out of vanity. We want control.
Precisely. When Zhongli strikes the tiger, he does so instantly, decisively, and flawlessly. He uses his capability to restore harmony to the village. But the crucial moment, the proof of his enlightenment, is what happens after the tiger is dead.
He refuses to give his name.
Right. By smiling, staying silent, and simply walking away, he proves that he has completely severed his worldly desires. Think about who he used to be. A Han Dynasty general would have demanded a reward.
Oh, absolutely.
He would have wanted a promotion or a monument in his honor. He would have wanted his name recorded in the history books to secure his legacy.
But Zhongli Quan no longer cares about earthly history books. I mean, as the prophecy said earlier, his name is already in the Jade Register.
He acts entirely without ego. He does exactly what is required in the moment to restore balance and not a single thing more. He leaves absolutely no trace of his ego behind.
That is a phenomenal way to understand it. He solves the problem, but he doesn't feed his own ego in the process. It's such a complete journey for him in this chapter.
It really is.